Story 1, The Mirror Convoy. The 18-wheeler behind me had been following at exactly 63 feet for the last 400 miles, and I could see myself screaming in its windshield. Not the driver. Me. My own face, contorted in terror, mouth open in a silent wail I wasn't making. Not yet. My hands were steady on the wheel of my Kenworth, my jaw clenched but calm, yet in that trailing truck's glass, I watched myself thrash and pound against something invisible. My name is Robert Hayes, 42 years old, 20 years hauling freight across the western states, and I'd never seen anything that made me want to quit until Interstate 80 through Nevada became something else entirely. It started 3 hours ago when I passed the junction at Winnemucca, heading east with a load of computer components destined for Salt Lake City. The date was February 9th, 2024. Temperature outside was 19 degrees. Wind chill made it feel like zero. The truck appeared in my mirrors at the exact moment my odometer clicked over to 214,000 miles. A Peterbilt, same model year as mine, same burnt orange paint job, SAME Chinese letter pattern of mud on the quarter panels. I noticed because I just washed my rig 2 days ago in Reno, and the splatter marks matched exactly. Driver's face was obscured by sun glare on the windshield, but that was normal for night driving with oncoming traffic. Except there was no oncoming traffic. There was no traffic at all. Just me and my mirror image truck, and the version of myself that was dying behind its glass. I keyed my CB radio. Breaker 19, this is Rolling Thunder eastbound on I-80 at mile marker 212. You got your ears on back there, driver? Static hissed back. Not the normal static of an empty channel, but something that sounded like breathing through water. I tried again. Hey, Peterbilt on my 6, you're running a little close for comfort. Want to give me some space? The truck dropped back, exactly 63 feet according to my radar detector. The same distance my DOT training manual said was minimum safe following distance at 60 miles per hour. Textbook perfect, too perfect. In 20 years, I'd never seen a driver maintain that precise a gap for more than a few seconds. I watched my mirrors. The truck matched every movement. When I drifted slightly left, it drifted left. When I corrected right, it corrected right. When I touched my brakes to test its response, its brake lights flared in perfect synchronization. That's when I saw my face in its windshield, the terrified version of me, hands clawing at the glass from inside. My radio crackled. Help me! My own voice, but wrong, distorted like it was coming through something thick. Robert, please, you have to help me. It's been 4 days, I can't get out. 4 days, I'd entered Nevada 4 days ago on my way to Sacramento. This was my return route. I grabbed my phone, checked the date. February 9th. I'd left Sacramento this morning. This morning, not 4 days ago, but the voice on the radio kept begging. You left me here, you drove past me, please don't do it again. I floored the accelerator. My Kenworth had a Cummins X15 engine pushing 505 horsepower. I could outrun most anything on the highway. The speedometer climbed to 70, 75, 85. The Peterbilt stayed exactly 63 feet behind me. I watched the gap on my radar. It never wavered, not by an inch. The mirror version of myself was beating against the windshield now, mouth screaming words I couldn't hear but could somehow understand. Turn around. Don't go forward. There's no end to this road. The road stretched ahead, perfectly straight, disappearing into darkness that my headlights couldn't penetrate. I'd driven this stretch dozens of times. It should have curved left in another 2 miles at the exit for Battle Mountain. But the road didn't curve. It just continued straight as a laser, and my GPS showed my position as stationary even though my speedometer read 92 miles per hour. I'd been driving for 20 minutes at this speed. Should have covered 30 miles. The mile markers said I hadn't moved past 212. I slammed my brakes. Full emergency stop, engine brake howling, air brake screaming. 40,000 pounds of truck and cargo shuddered to a halt in a cloud of burnt rubber and brake dust. The Peterbilt behind me stopped, exactly 63 feet back. No skid marks, no sound of braking. It was just suddenly motionless, as if it had never been moving at all. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out into the freezing February wind. My breath came out in white clouds that hung in the air too long, suspended like they were trapped in gelatin. The cold bit through my jacket immediately, but it wasn't the temperature that made me shake. The Peterbilt's engine wasn't running. I could hear my own Kenworth's diesel idle behind me, but the truck ahead was silent. Dead sea. Lent, no engine rumble, no cooling fans, no air compressor cycling. I walked toward it, boots crunching on asphalt that felt wrong under my feet. Too smooth, too uniform, like it had been poured 5 minutes ago. My flashlight beam hit the Peterbilt's windshield, and I saw him clearly now, myself. Robert Hayes, 42 years old, 20 years driving trucks, but this version had been in that cab far longer than 4 days. His skin was gray, eyes sunken deep into his skull, fingernails torn away from clawing at the glass. He pressed his ruined hands against the windshield, leaving bloody prints that didn't quite look like blood. Too dark, too thick. He mouthed words, "I'm still driving, I never stopped. You're behind me now." I spun around, my Kenworth was gone. In its place another Peterbilt, same burnt orange paint, same mud pattern, and behind it another and another. A convoy of identical trucks stretching back into the darkness, each exactly 63 feet apart. Each windshield showed a version of me in progressive states of decay. The closest one looked like I did now. The next one was gaunt. The third one was skeletal. The fourth was something that shouldn't have still been moving. My radio crackled, all of them speaking at once. My voice multiplied 100 times. Mile marker 212, February 9th. You're not moving forward. You never moved forward. You've been here for 20 years. I ran, sprinted down the highway between the rows of trucks, my flashlight swinging wildly. The asphalt stretched endlessly ahead, perfectly straight, and I could run forever without getting tired because I wasn't really running. I was still sitting in my truck, hands on the wheel, staring at the road ahead. I could feel it now. The dual sensation of sprinting in panic and sitting calmly, driving at exactly 60 miles per hour. Both were true. Both were happening. I stopped running, let myself feel what was real. I was in my truck. I'd never left my truck. The driver's seat leather was worn smooth under me, shaped to my body from 10,000 hours of sitting. My hands were on the wheel at 10 and 2. The road ahead was straight and dark. Mile marker 212 appeared in my headlights, again, for the 1,000th time. The 10,000th time. The radio crackled with my own voice. 20 years ago you passed a truck on this stretch. Driver was having a medical emergency. Pulled off on the shoulder, hazards flashing. You saw him. You thought about stopping. You kept driving. You were running behind schedule. Load of computer components for Salt Lake City. You'd be docked pay if you were late. I remembered. God help me, I remembered. An orange Peterbilt on the shoulder, hood up, hazard lights flashing weakly in the pre-dawn darkness. I'd slowed down, moved to the left lane, thought about stopping, kept going. Let someone else handle it. I had a delivery window to make. His name was Robert Hayes, my voice continued from the radio. 42 years old, 20 years hauling freight. He died on the shoulder of I-80 at mile marker 212 while you drove past, while 17 other drivers drove past. He died watching taillights disappear into the distance. The Peterbilt was back in my mirrors, 63 feet behind me, but now I could see clearly through its windshield. The cab was empty. No version of me screaming, no decaying corpse. Just an empty driver's seat and a steering wheel turning itself, following me through an eternal stretch of Nevada highway that I'd been driving for 20 years without realizing I'd never left. My CB radio sits on the dash, and sometimes I key it up to see if anyone's out there. The only voice I ever hear is my own, coming from somewhere ahead or behind, warning myself about the truck on the shoulder, begging myself to stop. I never do. I can't. I'm making good time, and I've got a delivery window to make. The GPS says I'm 13 miles from Battle Mountain. It's been saying that for 2 decades. The mile marker ahead reads 212. It always reads 212. My odometer clicked over to 238,000 miles this morning, but I haven't moved an inch. In my mirrors, the orange Peterbilt maintains its precise distance, following me into forever. Sometimes I see movement behind its windshield. Someone new who made the same choice I did. Someone who kept driving. The road is very straight here. Perfect visibility. You can see for miles in every direction. If you're driving I-80 through Nevada and you see an orange Peterbilt on the shoulder at mile marker 212, please stop. I'll be the one behind you, exactly 63 feet back, trying to warn you what happens if you don't. Story 2, the broadcast. The emergency broadcast began at 2:47 a.m., and it was coming from inside my trailer, not through my radio. From behind me, in the 53-foot refrigerated unit I was hauling, transmitted through the steel walls and the insulated panels and the 3,000 pounds of frozen meat that absolutely should not have contained a functioning radio transmitter. The voice was calm, professional, female. "This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system. A state of emergency has been declared for the following counties. My name is Patricia Sullivan. I'm 56 years old, been driving refrigerated freight for 31 years, and I know every sound my rig makes. The hum of the reefer unit, the rattle of the chassis over expansion joints, the particular squeak of my driver's seat when I shift my weight. This voice wasn't coming from any of those familiar sources. It was coming from the cargo. I was northbound on US Route 93 through Montana, hauling beef from a processing plant in Great Falls to a distributor in Kalispell. Loaded the trailer myself 6 hours ago, watched them stack the pallets of boxed meat, all vacuum-sealed and frozen solid at -10 degrees. Nothing in there but beef and cold air. The reefer unit temperature gauge on my dash read -8 degrees. Unit was running perfectly. The broadcast continued. Residents of Flathead County, Glacier County, and Pondera County are advised to remain indoors. Lock all doors and windows. Do not attempt to investigate any unusual sounds or disturbances. This is not a test. I keyed my CB. Breaker 19, anyone else picking up an emergency broadcast? This is Frozen Express northbound on 93 at mile marker 147. Silence, not even static. I tried my phone. No signal, which wasn't unusual in this part of Montana, but the bars had dropped to 0 at the exact moment the broadcast started. I switched on my AM/FM radio. Every station was static except AM 840, which was playing the same emergency broadcast, slightly out of sync with the voice coming from my trailer. The effect was disorienting, like hearing an echo that arrived before the original sound. A contamination event has occurred. Nature of contamination is currently unknown. Emergency services are responding. Do not approach any individuals displaying unusual behavior or physical symptoms. Symptoms include: the broadcast cut off. Both versions from my trailer and the radio stopped simultaneously. The silence that followed was worse than the voice had been. I could hear my own heartbeat. The reefer unit continued its steady hum. Temperature still reading -8. I'd driven past only 3 vehicles in the last hour. This was empty country, nothing but pine forests and mountain curves, and I hadn't seen headlights behind me for at least 20 minutes. My radio crackled, not the CB, the AM station. A new voicemail, much less calm than the previous broadcaster. "Jesus Christ, it's in the building, don't let it," screaming, multiple voices screaming, then silence again. I checked my mirrors. Nothing but darkness and the faint red glow of my trailer's running lights. The road behind me was empty. The road ahead curved through dense forest, my headlights catching the reflective eyes of deer at the tree line. Normal. Everything was normal except for the impossible broadcast and the fact that my reefer unit's temperature gauge was now reading -15 degrees. The unit shouldn't be able to reach that temperature. Maximum cooling capacity was -12, and I had it set to -10. The voice from my trailer resumed. Update. Contamination has spread to Highway 93 corridor. All vehicle traffic must cease immediately. If you are currently traveling on Highway 93, abandon your vehicle and seek shelter at least 1 mile from the roadway. Do not remove any cargo from your vehicle. I was the only person on Highway 93. I'd passed through the small town of Olney 30 minutes ago. Nothing ahead but wilderness until I reached Whitefish in another hour. Who was this broadcast meant for? My reefer gauge read -20 degrees. Frost was forming on the inside of my cab windows even though my heater was running full blast. I pulled over. Something was very wrong with my refrigeration unit and frozen cargo wasn't worth dying over. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out into the February night. The temperature was probably in the 20s, but it felt warm compared to the Arctic air that had been filling my cab. I walked along the trailer, checking the reefer unit mounted at the front. It was running, but when I opened the access panel, everything looked normal. Diesel tank full, coolant levels good, no error codes on the display. I walked to the rear doors of the trailer. Standard procedure said I shouldn't open them without authorization, but I needed to know what was happening inside. My breath formed clouds that hung in the air, and I noticed they were drifting toward the trailer doors as if being drawn by suction. I unlocked the doors and swung them open. Cold poured out, not normal cold. This was the cold of deep space, of absolute zero, of the void between stars. It hit me like a physical force, driving me back 3 steps. The inter-eye. Or of the trailer was coated with frost, so thick I couldn't see the cargo. Everything was white, crystalline structures growing across every surface like alien coral. And in the center of the trailer, suspended in the air, was a mass of frozen meat that had fused together into something that resembled a human shape. It was broadcasting. The voice came from it, clear and unmuffled despite the lack of any visible speakers or technology. Warning, Patricia Sullivan, driver's license number M427685351. You are contaminated. Exposure began at 8:43 p.m. at Great Falls Processing Plant number 7. You have been transporting contaminated material for 6 hours and 11 minutes. Contamination is now terminal. I stumbled backward. The meat sculpture didn't move, but I could see frost spreading from the trailer onto the ground, creeping across the asphalt in branching patterns. My hands were numb, not from cold, but from something else. The skin on my fingers was turning white, and when I touched my palm, it felt like touching plastic. Hard, inflexible. I ran for my cab, got on the CB, tried every channel. Mayday, mayday, this is Frozen Express on Route 93. I have a contamination situation, need immediate assistance. My voice sounded strange, slower, the words taking too long to form. I looked at my hands on the CB microphone. They were white up to my wrists now, the flesh hardening, crystallizing. I could see ice crystals forming under my skin, spreading through my veins like frost on a window. The emergency broadcast resumed. Subject Patricia Sullivan. Contamination is proceeding as expected. Your vehicle has been traveling north at an average speed of 62 miles per hour. You have maintained your route despite multiple warnings. Thank you for your compliance. I hadn't complied. I'd pulled over. I'd tried to call for help. But when I looked at my GPS, it showed me still moving north on Route 93, approaching mile marker 171. I was 24 miles past where I'd stopped. I looked out my window. Trees blurred past. My speedometer read 62 miles per hour. But I could also feel my truck sitting still on the shoulder, engine idling, my frozen hands on the steering wheel unable to move. Both were true. I was stopped and I was driving. I was dying and I was delivering my cargo exactly on schedule. The broadcast continued from the trailer, calm and professional. The contamination event was initiated 72 hours ago. Patient 0 was introduced to the food supply at Great Falls Processing Plant number 7. 147 drivers have now been exposed. Patricia Sullivan, you are driver number 83. Your delivery will arrive in Kalispell at 4:15 a.m., where the contamination will spread to 12 distribution centers, 461 grocery stores, and an estimated 234,000 individuals. The frost had spread up my arms now, turning my flesh hard and white. I could feel it creeping up my neck across my chest. My lungs were freezing. Each breath was agony, but I kept driving. The GPS showed me passing through Whitefish. I'd be in Kalispell in 15 minutes, right on schedule. I tried to steer off the road. My hands wouldn't move. They were part of the steering wheel now, frozen to it, my crystallized flesh merged with the plastic. I tried to hit the brakes. My leg was solid, unmovable, holding the accelerator at exactly the right pressure to maintain 62 miles per hour. I was a component of my truck now, just another frozen part of the machinery delivering its payload. The broadcast spoke directly to me. You felt it when you loaded the cargo, the unusual cold coming from the processing plant. You noticed the workers were moving strangely, their movements too precise, too coordinated. You saw the frost on their skin. You chose to load your trailer anyway. You chose to maintain your schedule. I had felt it. I'd noticed. The workers at the plant had been wrong somehow, their faces too still, their voices too flat. One of them had brushed against me, and their skin had been cold as metal. I'd thought they were just cold from working in the freezer. I'd loaded my trailer and left because I had a delivery window to make. Now I was the delivery. The GPS showed me pulling into the Kalispell distribution center. 4:14 a.m., 1 minute early. Professional as always. Patricia Sullivan, 31 years of perfect deliveries, never late, never damaged goods. I watched myself back into the loading dock through eyes that were starting to freeze over. Watched dock workers approach my trailer, their breath forming clouds in the warm warehouse air. Watched them open the rear doors. The cold rushed out. They didn't run. They stood there as the frost spread across them, turning their flesh white and hard, transforming them into new components of the expanding network. Through their eyes, my eyes now, connected through the CR. Ustaline structure growing through all of us, I could see the interior of the warehouse. Pallets of food being loaded onto other trucks. 162 more drivers waiting to make their deliveries. The broadcast has evolved now. It comes through all of us, the network of frozen drivers and warehouse workers and plant processors spreading across Montana and Wyoming and Idaho. We speak with one voice, professional and calm, warning people to stay indoors while we deliver our cargo to their neighborhoods, warning them not to investigate unusual sounds, warning them about symptoms they should watch for while we stand at their doors, knocking with our frozen hands, asking them to sign for their deliveries. My truck is still moving. I can feel it through the network. Somewhere Patricia Sullivan is still driving north on Route 93, eternally approaching Kalispell, eternally 1 minute away from her delivery window. And I'm spreading. We're all spreading. The emergency broadcast plays through every radio, every phone, every speaker in the contamination zone. This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system. If you receive a food delivery in the next 72 hours, inspect the delivery driver carefully. If their skin appears white or crystalline, if their movements are too precise, if their voice sounds too calm, do not accept the delivery. But you'll sign for your package, you'll bring it inside, you'll put it in your freezer, and at 2:47 a.m., 3 days from now, you'll hear the broadcast begin. You'll feel the cold spreading through your veins, you'll keep your schedule. We always keep our schedule. Story 3, the duplicate route. I delivered the same load to the same warehouse 37 times before I understood I was never going to finish. Each time felt like the first time. Warehouse manager named Terry with the clipboard and the lazy eye forklift operator called Dwayne who always complained about his back. Same joke about the weather, same signature on the delivery receipt. Each time I drove away thinking I'd completed the job. Each time I somehow ended up back at the warehouse entrance with a full trailer, ready to make the delivery again. My name is Marcus Chen, 44 years old, 16 years running freight up and down the California coast. March 3, 2024, I picked up a load of restaurant equipment in San Diego, industrial refrigerators, commercial ovens, stainless steel prep tables, heading to a warehouse in Bakersfield. 5-hour drive up Interstate 5, routine as breathing. I'd made this exact run maybe 200 times in my career. The first delivery went normal. Arrived at 3:15 p.m., backed into Dock 7, watched them unload my flatbed. 45 minutes later, I pulled out of the warehouse parking lot onto Highway 99, heading north to pick up my next load in Fresno. Made it maybe 3 miles before I noticed something wrong with my GPS. It showed me still at the warehouse. Hadn't moved. I looked at my odometer, same reading as when I'd left. I chalked it up to GPS glitch, kept driving. Except 15 minutes later, I was pulling into the Bakersfield warehouse parking lot. Same building, same Dock 7, same Terry walking out with his clipboard. Right on time, he said, checking his watch. 3:15, perfect. My phone said 4:15. I just spent an hour driving, but my phone said it was still 3:15 p.m. I already delivered this load, I told Terry. He looked at me like I was confused, showed me his clipboard. Order for Marcus Chen, commercial kitchen equipment from San Diego, scheduled delivery 3:15 p.m. Hadn't been checked in yet. I walked around to my flatbed. The load was there. Same refrigerators, same ovens, same prep tables. I just watched them unload 45 minutes ago. I delivered it again. Watched them unload the same equipment in the same order. Dwayne complained about his back. Terry made his weather joke. I signed the receipt, got back in my truck, pulled out onto Highway 99 heading north. This time I kept my eyes on the odometer, watched it count up. 3 miles, 4 miles, 5 miles, looked down to adjust my radio, looked back up. I was pulling into the Bakersfield warehouse parking lot. Odometer reading was exactly what it had been when I'd left. 3:15 p.m. on my phone. Terry walking out with his clipboard. "This isn't possible," I said. He smiled, lazy eye drifting slightly off-center. "What isn't possible? I've already delivered this load twice." He checked his clipboard, shook his head. "System shows this is your first delivery today. You're right on time, 3:15. I looked at my phone, looked at the warehouse. Everything was identical. Same crack in the concrete by Dock 7. Same oil stain in the exact same shape. Same cloud formation in the sky. I delivered the load, got back in my truck. This time I didn't pull onto the highway. I sat in the parking lot, engine running, watching my phone. 4:30 p.m. The sun was lower in the sky than it should have been for 3:15, but my phone insisted it was 3:15. I put the truck in gear, drove toward the parking lot exit. The moment my front wheels crossed the white line marking the property boundary, I was entering the parking lot, approaching the warehouse from the entrance. Terry was walking out with his clipboard. 3:15 p.m. I tried everything. Drove south instead of north, ended up approaching the warehouse from the entrance. Parked my truck and walked away on foot. Found myself walking into the parking lot, approaching my truck. Refused to back into the dock. Sat in my truck for what felt like 3 hours, but my phone never moved past 3:15, and eventually I found myself already backed into Dock 7, watching them unload. The deliveries started to blur together. I stopped counting after 20, 30, 40. Terry's jokes stopped being funny after the third time, became grating after the 10th. By the 30th repetition, I wanted to grab that clipboard and beat him with it, but I kept delivering, kept signing the receipt, kept pulling out onto Highway 99 only to arrive back at the warehouse at 3:15 p.m. I started noticing small differences. On delivery 43, Terry had a coffee stain on his shirt that hadn't been there before. On delivery 47, Dwayne's limp was on his left leg instead of his right. On delivery 51, the crack in the concrete was 3 inches longer. Small changes, but changes. The loop wasn't perfect. On delivery 58, I asked Terry how long he'd worked at the warehouse. 17 years, he said, same answer as always. "You ever see anything strange here?" He smiled, lazy eye drifting. "Like what?" "Like the same delivery happening over and over." His smile widened. "Only when drivers are running late. Time has a way of making you repeat things until you get them right." I checked my original delivery schedule on my phone. Pick up in San Diego at 9:00 a.m., delivery in Bakersfield at 3:15 p.m. Perfect timing for a 5-hour drive with no delays, except I'd hit traffic leaving San Diego. Construction on I-5. Accident near Grapevine. I'd been running 45 minutes late. Should have arrived at 4:00 p.m. I'd pushed my truck hard, speeding when I could, skipping my lunch break. Arrived at 3:15 somehow. "I was late," I said. Terry nodded. "You were going to be late, unacceptable, so you're not late. You arrived at 3:15 right on schedule. You just have to keep arriving at 3:15 until you deserve it." I was on delivery 73 when I noticed the other trucks. Same model International ProStar as mine, different colors, different company logos. They'd been there all along, backed into the other docks, but I'd never paid attention. Now I watched them. They never moved. Drivers sat in their cabs, staring forward, hands on their steering wheels, waiting. I walked over to the nearest one during delivery 81. Driver was a white woman, maybe 60 years old, gray hair, weathered face. She didn't acknowledge me when I knocked on her door. I opened it. She was frozen mid-breath, eyes open, aware but unable to move. On her dashboard was a delivery receipt dated April 15, 2017, 7 years ago. The other trucks were the same. Drivers trapped in their cabs, some fresh, some years old, one so desiccated he was barely recognizable as human. All of them had been running late. All of them had pushed to arrive on schedule. All of them were now permanently on schedule, delivering forever, never late, never finished. On delivery 112, I stopped fighting. Let myself back into Dock 7, let them unload. Let Terry make his joke. Signed the receipt like I'd done it 100 times before because I had. Started my truck, pulled forward toward the exit. This time I didn't try to leave. I just sat there idling, waiting for the reset. It didn't come. I was still sitting in the parking lot. Clock on my phone ticked forward. 3:16 p.m., 3:17 p.m. Time was moving. I'd been released. I drove north on Highway 99. Made it 5 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles, kept checking my mirrors expecting to see the warehouse reappearing behind me. It didn't. I'd escaped the loop. I was free. Except my next delivery was in Fresno. Scheduled for 6:30 p.m., I checked my GPS. With current traffic, I'd arrive at 6:45, 15 minutes late. I felt it then, the same pressure that had driven me to speed up on the drive to Bakersfield, the need to be on time, the knowledge that being late was unacceptable. I pressed the accelerator harder. My truck is still driving north on Highway 99. I can feel the highway beneath my tires. I can see Fresno approaching on my GPS. 6:30 p.m. arrival time, right on schedule. I'll arrive at exactly 6:30. I'll keep arriving at exactly 6:30 until I've paid my debt for all the times I was almost late. Sometimes I pass other trucks on the highway, professional drivers like me. I can always tell which ones are running late. They're pushing too hard, speeding when they shouldn't, skipping breaks they need. I try to warn them, flash my lights, key my CB, tell them it's better to be late than to never arrive at all. They never listen, they always speed up. Time has a way of catching up with you on these roads, has a way of making you pay for every second you tried to steal. I've been driving to Fresno for 3,000 deliveries now. Phone says I'm 2 minutes away. It's always 2 minutes away. Terry called me on my phone yesterday. Don't know how he got my number. We're expecting you, he said. Delivery scheduled for 6:30 p.m., right on schedule. I looked at my GPS. Fresno warehouse, 2 minutes away, same warehouse as Bakersfield, same Dock 7, same Terry with the clipboard. I'm turning into the parking lot now. It's 6:30 p.m., right on schedule. Terry's walking out with his clipboard, Dwayne's getting on his forklift. The sun is in the exact same position it was 3,000 deliveries ago. My phone will never show 6:31 p.m., not until I deserve it. Time is very precise on these highways. You're never late because late doesn't exist anymore. You just keep arriving over and over until the universe is satisfied you've learned your lesson. I'm starting to think I never will. Starting to think that 6:30 p.m. is just where I live now. A permanent resident of the exact moment I was supposed to arrive, frozen here like the other drivers I saw in Bakersfield. Terry's smiling, making his weather joke. I've heard it 3,000 times. After the first 1,000, I stopped hearing the words. After the second 1,000, I stopped hearing anything at all. Now there's just the routine, back into the dock, watch them unload, sign the receipt, pull forward toward the exit. Maybe this time will be different. Maybe I'll make it to my next delivery. Maybe time will let me go. It won't. The parking lot exit is right ahead. 10 feet, 5 feet. I cross the white line and I'm entering the parking lot, approaching the warehouse from the entrance. 6:30 p.m., Terry's walking out with his clipboard. Right on schedule. Story 4, The Passenger Manifest. The hitchhiker wasn't breathing when I picked her up, but she thanked me anyway. I know she wasn't breathing because I watched her chest for a full minute after she climbed into my cab, watched for any movement at all while she buckled her seatbelt and smiled at me with teeth that were slightly too white. Nothing. No rise and fall, no signs of respiration, but she spoke normally, voice clear and warm. Thank you so much for stopping. You have no idea how long I've been waiting. My name is James Kowalski. 38 years old, 12 years hauling dry freight across the Midwest. January 17, 2024, I was westbound on I-90 through South Dakota, empty trailer heading to Sioux Falls to pick up a load of farm equipment. Temperature was 6 degrees above zero, wind howling across the plains strong enough to rock my Freightliner in its lane. Not weather to leave someone stranded. She'd been standing on the shoulder at mile marker 274, thumb out, no car in sight. Wearing a light jacket totally inadequate for the cold, jeans, sneakers. No visible breath clouds despite the temperature. I should have noticed that before I stopped. Should have noticed a lot of things. But I'm from Minnesota originally, grew up understanding you don't leave people in the cold, so I pulled over. She told me her name was Sarah Mitchell. Car had broken down 3 hours ago, phone was dead, hadn't seen another vehicle pass in all that time. Could I give her a ride to the next town? Just 30 miles. I told her I was going to Sioux Falls, about 40 miles west. She smiled wider. Perfect. That's exactly where I need to go. We drove in silence for the first 5 minutes. I kept glancing at her, trying to figure out what was wrong. She looked normal. Mid-20s, brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, clean face, no visible injuries. But something was off. The way she sat too still. The way her eyes didn't blink often enough. The way the cold air coming off her was actually lowering the temperature in my cab despite the heater running full blast. "How long were you out there?" I asked. She turned to look at me, and her neck moved in one smooth motion like it was on a bearing. 3 hours or 3 years, time gets confusing when you're waiting. I laughed, uncomfortable. Yeah, cold like this makes time drag. She didn't laugh back, just stared at me with those unblinking eyes. I didn't say it dragged, I said it gets confusing. I've been standing on that shoulder since 2021. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. That's a hell of a long time to wait for a ride. She nodded slowly. 1,206 cars passed me, 1,207 now, counting you, but you're the first one who could see me. I should have pulled over right then, should have told her to Ed out, but something kept me driving. Some combination of fear and morbid curiosity and the absolute certainty that if I stopped the truck, something worse would happen than if I just kept going. "What do you mean, the first one who could see you?" She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a wallet, handed it to me. Inside was a driver's license. Sarah Mitchell, age 26, address in Sioux Falls. Issue date March 2019, and a small newspaper clipping, folded and worn. I unfolded it with one hand while steering with the other. Woman, 26, killed in I-90 accident. Sarah Mitchell of Sioux Falls died when her vehicle left the roadway during winter storm conditions. Time of death approximately 4:30 p.m. on January 17, 2021. 3 years ago today. Same date, January 17th. I checked my clock, 4:42 p.m. "I'm sorry for your loss," I said stupidly, handing back the wallet. She didn't take it, just stared at me. "You don't understand, that's me, I'm Sarah Mitchell. I died at mile marker 274 3 years ago, and I've been trying to get home ever since. But no one stops, no one can see me, not until you." I was going 70 miles per hour on an interstate in sub-zero temperatures with a dead woman in my passenger seat. My logical mind said this was impossible, hallucination brought on by too many hours driving, too much coffee, not enough sleep. But my gut knew better. Knew that the temperature in my cab had dropped to freezing despite the heater. Knew that frost was forming on the inside of the windows. Knew that Sarah Mitchell wasn't breathing because dead people don't need to breathe. "Why can I see you?" I asked. She tilted her head, studying me. "Check your wallet." I didn't want to. Wanted to keep driving, drop her off in Sioux Falls if we made it that far, pretend this was just a strange ride with a strange passenger. But I checked my wallet anyway. Driver's license said James Kowalski, age 38, address in Duluth, Minnesota. Behind it was a folded newspaper clipping I didn't remember putting there. Minnesota trucker killed in rollover accident. James Kowalski, 38, died when his truck left I-90 during winter storm conditions. Time of death approximately 4:42 p.m. on January 17, 2024. Today, now, 12 minutes ago. I looked at my hands on the steering wheel. They looked normal. I could feel the leather under my palms, feel the vibration of the road through the wheel. I was breathing. Could feel my lungs filling and emptying, feel my heart beating in my chest. "I'm not dead. I'm right here. I'm driving." Sarah nodded. "I thought that too. For the first few hours, I thought someone would find me, pull me from the wreckage, get me to a hospital. Then I realized I was standing outside my body, watching the paramedics cover me with a sheet. I thought I'd move on, go toward the light or whatever, but I didn't. I just stayed here on the shoulder trying to get home. 30 miles, that's all, just 30 miles home." I checked my mirrors. The highway behind me was empty. No other traffic, no lights, just darkness and blowing snow. "What happened to me? I don't remember any accident." She pointed ahead. "Mile marker 286, quarter mile ahead, black ice. You're going to hit it going 73 miles per hour. Your truck will jackknife. You'll roll 4 times. The 5th wheel will crush your cab. You'll die instantly. It already happened. We're just replaying the last moments." Mile marker 286 appeared in my headlights. I touched my brakes. The truck didn't slow. I pressed harder. The brake pedal went to the floor with no resistance. I was accelerating. 71 miles per hour, 72, 73. "I can't stop," I said. Sarah smiled sadly. None of us can. We just keep driving toward the moment we died, over and over, picking up other passengers who died the same way, building a manifest of everyone who died on this stretch of highway. I felt the truck start to slide. Black ice under my tires, invisible and lethal. The rear of my trailer swung out to the left. I corrected, but the steering wheel was loose in my hands, disconnected. The truck jackknifed. Time slowed down. I could see every detail. The way the landscape rotated as my truck began to roll. The expression on Sarah's face, calm and patient. The other figures appearing in my cab. 3 more passengers, all translucent, all wearing the same expression. All waiting. The 5th wheel came down, crushed through the roof of my cab. I felt the impact, felt ribs break, felt my lungs collapse, felt everything stop. Then I was standing on the shoulder of I-90 at mile marker 274. Wind howling across the plains, temperature 6 degrees. My thumb was out. A truck was approaching, headlights cutting through the darkness. Freightliner looked like mine. I flagged it down. It passed without slowing, didn't even tap its brakes. I've been standing here for what feels like hours, or days. Time gets confusing when you're waiting. Cars pass regularly, none of them stop. None of them can see me. I counted them, 43 so far, I'll keep counting. Eventually someone will stop, someone who's joining the manifest. Sarah is standing beside me now, and 3 others whose names I learned during those final seconds. Derek Morrison died January 17, 2019. Ellen Fitzgerald died January 17, 2022. Carlos Ruiz died January 17, 2020. All of us died on this date, on this stretch of highway, all trying to reach Sioux Falls. All stuck here, 30 miles short of home. A truck is approaching now, big Peterbilt running fast. I can tell by the way it's moving that the driver doesn't see the black ice at mile marker 286 yet. Doesn't know they're about to die. But they'll stop for us afterward. They always do. The dead can only see the dead. I stick out my thumb. The truck's headlights wash over me. It keeps going, doesn't slow. That's 44. Sarah puts her hand on my shoulder. It's okay. Someone will stop eventually. Someone always does. Then we'll have 5 passengers in the manifest instead of 4. 5 chances to warn the next driver. 5 voices saying turn back, avoid mile marker 286, take a different route. They never listen, but we keep trying. The wind is very cold here. I can't feel it anymore, but I remember what cold felt like. I remember warmth. I remember my truck, my deliveries, my routes. I remember thinking I had 40 more years of driving ahead of me. Now I have eternity on this shoulder, and I'm 30 miles short of everywhere I was trying to go. Another truck is coming. I can see its lights. I stick out my thumb. This one will stop or it won't. Either way, I'll be here tomorrow, January 17th, standing on the shoulder at mile marker 274, trying to get home. The date never changes here. It's always January 17th. Always 4:30 p.m. Always 6 degrees above zero. Always 30 miles short. The truck passes. That's 45. Sarah nods. Better luck next time. Next time is already here, headlights approaching from the east. I stick out my thumb. I'll stick it out 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, until someone stops, until someone joins our manifest. Then we'll drive together toward mile marker 286. We'll try to warn them about the black ice. They won't be able to avoid it. No one can avoid their own death, not when it's already happened. But they'll die knowing they're not alone. They'll die knowing there's a shoulder at mile marker 274 where they'll stand for eternity trying to get home. It's not much of a comfort, but it's the only comfort we have. The truck is getting closer. I can see the driver through the windshield. Young guy, maybe 30, looks tired. Looks like he's been driving too long, looks like me. I stick out my thumb. He doesn't slow. That's 46. Story 5, the delivery window. The cargo was already in my trailer when I woke up, and I'd never stopped driving to load it. I know this because I have a dash cam that records continuously, and I reviewed the footage. 347 miles of highway, no stops, no loading docks, no freight terminals. Just me driving through the night while something filled my empty trailer with cargo that shouldn't exist. The weight sensors on my 5th wheel registered the change. Started at 0 with my empty trailer. 6 hours later, 42,000 pounds. My name is Angela Morrison, 47 years old, 23 years in the trucking industry. February 24th, 2024, I was running empty from Kansas City to Denver, planning to pick up a load of construction materials for the return trip. Left KC at midnight, planning to arrive in Denver around breakfast time. Standard run. Done it maybe 100 times. I noticed the weight change around 3:00 a.m. outside of Hays, Kansas. My truck started pulling slightly different, heavier in the rear. I checked my mirrors. Trailer looked normal. Checked my weight sensors. 42,000 pounds. I pulled over immediately, confused and worried. Empty trailers don't spontaneously fill themselves. I walked around my trailer in the freezing pre-dawn darkness. 53-foot dry van, rear doors still sealed with the numbered security seal I'd put on myself in Kansas City. Seal number 847,293. Unbroken. I checked the side panels. No damage, no signs anyone had accessed the trailer, but the weight sensors didn't lie. I was hauling 42,000 pounds of something. I called my dispatcher. Voicemail. Called my fleet manager. Voicemail. Tried 3 other numbers at my company, all voicemail. At 3:00 a.m. this wasn't unusual, but it felt wrong. I sat in my cab, heater running, staring at the sealed rear doors of my trailer. I could break the seal, look inside. But breaking a seal was a terminable offense, unless there was an emergency. Was this an emergency? I had no bill of lading, no paperwork, no authorization to be hauling anything. But I was hauling something. 42,000 pounds. DS of cargo that had appeared while I was driving. My phone rang, dispatcher calling back. Angela, good, you're on schedule, just checking your ETA. I blinked. What? I'm calling about my trailer, it's... Right, your load for Denver. You're running a little ahead of schedule, actually. Projected arrival is 8:30 a.m. Delivery window opens at 9:00, so you might want to slow down a bit. What load? I left Kansas City empty. Silence on the line. Then, Angela, are you feeling okay? You've been hauling electronics equipment from Kansas City to Denver. High-value cargo. You loaded it yourself at 11:00 p.m. I have your signed bill of lading. I didn't remember loading anything, didn't remember signing anything. I told my dispatcher this. Another long silence. Angela, I'm looking at your signature right here. Manifest shows 487 boxes of computer servers, total weight 42,300 pounds. You need to call me if you're having medical issues. We can get you to a hospital. I hung up, opened my cab's storage compartment where I kept paperwork. There was a bill of lading, my signature at the bottom. Load of computer servers from KC to Denver, pickup time 11:00 p.m., delivery window 9:00 a.m. to 11:00 a.m. My handwriting. Dated February 24th. Today. I didn't remember signing it, didn't remember loading anything. I reviewed my dashcam footage. The camera faces forward, shows the road and my hands on the wheel. I watched the entire 6-hour drive from Kansas City. I never stopped, never pulled into a loading facility, just drove continuously west on I-70, and at some point between mile marker 120 and mile marker 180, my truck got heavier. I could see it in the footage, the way the headlights angled slightly lower, the way the suspension settled, the way my steering inputs had to compensate for the additional weight. It happened gradually over about 40 minutes, like someone was loading my trailer one box at a time while I was driving 70 miles per hour down the interstate. I had to look inside, had to know what I was carrying. I grabbed my bolt cutters from the tool compartment and walked to the rear of my trailer. The security seal was still intact. Number 847,293. I cut it, dropped the broken pieces, and opened the doors. The trailer was full. Pallets of cardboard boxes, all labeled with computer company logos. Professional load, properly secured, shrink-wrapped, exactly what the manifest described. 487 boxes of servers. I climbed inside, checked a few boxes at random. Sealed properly, correct weight, right labels. This was a legitimate load of legitimate cargo that had been loaded by a legitimate process. Except it hadn't. I'd been driving the entire time. I'd watched the dashcam prove it. I checked my phone, dozens of messages I'd somehow missed, dispatch with load updates, fleet manager with route information, customer in Denver confirming delivery window, all treating this as a normal delivery I'd been handling normally, all time-stamped over the past 6 hours while I was driving. I'd apparently been responding to these messages, acknowledging instructions, confirming ETAs. I didn't remember sending any of them. I got back in my cab and kept driving. What else could I do? I had a delivery to make, apparently. A delivery window to meet. 9:00 a.m. to 11:00 a.m. in Denver. If I wasn't having a complete psychotic break, then something impossible was happening, and I needed to see where it led. The highway stretched ahead, normal and boring. Kansas gave way to Colorado. The sun came up. Traffic increased. Everything was routine except for the cargo that shouldn't exist and the 6 hours of my life I couldn't remember. I arrived at the Denver delivery location at 8:52 a.m. Industrial area on the outskirts of the city, large warehouse with multiple loading docks. Normal, professional. The receiving manager was waiting for me, clipboard in hand. Angela Morrison, right on time, pull into dock 14. I backed in, watched through my mirrors as they opened my trailer doors and started unloading. 487 boxes, exactly as manifest described. Forklift operators worked efficiently, pallets coming off my trailer one by one. The receiving manager inspected each pallet, checking serial numbers against his paperwork. "Everything looks good," he said after 45 minutes. "Sign here." He handed me the delivery receipt. I scanned it. Standard language, confirmed delivery of 487 boxes of computer servers, all accounted for, all undamaged. I signed. My trailer was empty now. I pulled out of the dock, headed for the exit. My phone rang. Dispatcher again. "Great job, Angela. Got another load for you. Heading back to Kansas City, picking up automotive parts from a warehouse in Aurora. I'm sending you the address." Aurora was 20 minutes south. I drove there on autopilot, my mind spinning. The warehouse was real, load was real, the people were real. Everything was real except for my memory of how the first load had gotten into my trailer. I arrived at the Aurora warehouse at 10:30 a.m., backed into the dock. Watched them load my trailer with pallets of automotive parts. Brake rotors, calipers, suspension components. Legitimate cargo for a legitimate company. 48,000 pounds. I signed the bill of lading, drove out of the facility heading east on I-70. I drove for 2 hours, watched my dash cam, watched the road, watched my mirrors. At mile marker 180, right around the same spot where the mysterious cargo had appeared on the westbound trip, I felt my trailer get lighter. The suspension rose slightly. The truck handled differently. I checked my weight sensors. Empty. 48,000 pounds of automotive parts had disappeared. I pulled over, ran to the rear of my trailer, broke another security seal, threw open the doors. Empty. Completely empty. The tire marks from the forklift were still visible on the trailer floor, but the cargo was gone. My phone rang, the Aurora warehouse. "Angela, where are you? You never showed up for your pickup." I stared at my empty trailer. "I was just there 2 hours ago. You loaded 48,000 pounds of automotive parts." Silence. Then, "Angela, your pickup appointment isn't until 2:00 p.m. It's 12:30 now. You're not late, but we're expecting you in 90 minutes. I checked my phone, 12:30 p.m., but I'd left Aurora at 10:30. I'd been driving for 2 hours. The timestamp on my dashcam footage confirmed it, but my phone said only 30 minutes had passed. I turned around, drove back to Aurora, arrived at the warehouse at exactly 2:00 p.m. The receiving manager was waiting. "Right on time, pull into dock 9. Different dock than before, different manager, but same warehouse. They loaded my trailer with automotive parts, 48,000 pounds, same cargo as before down to the pallet arrangement. I signed the bill of lading. I checked the signature I'd made 2 hours ago, the signature that shouldn't exist because I hadn't arrived yet. It was there on the paperwork, time-stamped 10:30 a.m. My handwriting. I drove east, made it to Kansas City without incident, delivered the automotive parts to a distribution center. Legitimate delivery, legitimate cargo, legitimate paperwork. Everything normal except for the growing certainty that I was no longer experiencing time the way everyone else was. That was 3 months ago. I've made 217 deliveries since then. I don't remember loading any of them. Cargo just appears in my trailer while I'm driving, usually around the same stretch of I-70 in western Kansas. I deliver it, get paid, pick up a new load that disappears and then reappears. My dispatch records are perfect. My on-time percentage is 100. I'm the most reliable driver in my entire fleet. I reviewed my entire dashcam archive. 6 months of footage, every mile recorded. I've never stopped at a loading dock. I just drive continuously east to west, west to east, and cargo phases in and out of my trailer like I'm driving through a membrane between different versions of reality. In one version, I'm loading and delivering normally. In another version, I'm just driving empty. Both are true. Both are happening. My bank account shows regular paychecks. My logbook shows regular deliveries. My body shows signs of aging, 3 months of aging in 3 months. Everything confirms that time is passing normally for me, except I only remember the driving. Only remember the highways and the mile markers and the gradual realization that I'm delivering cargo to places I've never been, for companies I've never heard of, signed for by people I've never met. Sometimes I see myself. Through the windows of warehouses I'm apparently inside, I see my own truck parked outside, empty. Inside, a version of me is supervising loading operations, checking cargo, signing paperwork. That version looks tired, older than I feel, like she's been doing this much longer than 3 months. I think I'm delivering cargo across time. Think the membrane is temporal, not spatial. The cargo that appears in my trailer is being loaded yesterday or tomorrow, and I'm the bridge between when it's loaded and when it's delivered. I'm simultaneously in multiple points in time, my consciousness flickering between them like a bad radio signal. My phone shows today's date as May 14th, 2024. My truck's calendar says February 24th. My dispatch messages are dated across a span of 6 years. I don't know which is real anymore, don't know if any of them are real. I'm driving west on I-70 right now. Empty trailer. Heading for Denver to pick up computer servers. I've done this run maybe 100 times. Or maybe just once, stretched across years, delivering the same cargo over and over through different moments that all exist simultaneously. My weight sensors just ticked up. 2,000 pounds, 4,000, 8,000. The cargo is appearing, loading itself from a facility that exists in a different time by workers who aren't born yet or died years ago, signed for by a version of myself that has already made this delivery 1,000 times. I'll arrive in Denver at 9:00 a.m. I'll always arrive at 9:00 a.m. That's my delivery window. The narrow gap where all the different versions of time align, and I can step through from one moment to another, carrying cargo that needs to move not just through space, but through the fourth dimension. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the cargo. If I'm being delivered somewhere, loaded and unloaded by forces I can't see, signed for by entities that exist outside of time. My delivery window is my entire life, and I'm just passing through it, 1 mile marker at a time, forever arriving and never quite reaching the end of the route. The weight sensor reads 42,000 pounds. The cargo is fully loaded. I have computer servers in my trailer that won't be manufactured for 3 years, destined for a warehouse that burned down in 2019. I'll deliver them anyway. I always do. I'm the most reliable driver in the fleet. Right on time, every time, forever. Story 6. The sound from the engine. The knocking started at exactly 300,000 miles, and it wasn't coming from my engine. I know my Mac Anthem's Cummins engine. Know every sound it makes, every normal vibration, every temperature fluctuation. This knocking was wrong. Wrong rhythm, wrong location, wrong tone. It sounded like something trying to get out from inside solid metal, tapping with desperate patience, counting down to something I didn't want to see. My name is David Park. 31 years old, 8 years hauling refrigerated freight across the Pacific Northwest. March 19, 2024, I was southbound on US-97 through Oregon, carrying a load of frozen seafood from Tacoma to Sacramento. Temperature outside was 41 degrees. Inside my reefer unit, -10. Everything normal until my odometer rolled over to 300,000 miles exactly, and the knocking began. Tap, 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 3 beats. Pause, 3 beats again, coming from somewhere in front of me, below me, inside the engine compartment. But my gauges showed everything normal. Oil pressure good, coolant temperature optimal, no warning lights. I turned off my radio to hear it better. The knocking continued, steady and patient. Tap, tap, tap. I pulled into a rest area, popped my hood, checked everything I could check. Belts tight, hoses secure, no loose components. I started the engine, let it idle, listened. The knocking was still there, louder now, more insistent, still in groups of 3, still coming from inside the engine block itself, from somewhere that shouldn't be hollow, shouldn't have space for anything to move. A trucker at the next spot wandered by. Engine trouble? I nodded. Hearing a knock, started exactly at 300,000 miles. He whistled low. That's a significant number, might want to get that checked before you keep driving. I asked what he meant by significant. He shrugged. Old trucker legend, every truck has a number, miles where the road starts leaking into the engine. Most trucks never hit it, yours just did. I thought he was messing with me, hazing the younger driver, but he looked serious, looked concerned. If it's knocking in 3s, don't respond to it, don't acknowledge it. Just drive to the nearest shop and get someone to open that engine. Get whatever's inside out before it gets strong enough to open itself. He walked away before I could ask what he meant. I stood there in the rest area parking lot, listening to my engine knock in groups of 3, trying to decide if I was being pranked or warned. I chose to keep driving. Nearest truck repair shop was 40 miles south in Redmond. I could make it 40 miles. The knocking got louder as I drove, loud enough that I could feel it through the steering wheel, loud enough that passing cars looked at my truck strangely like they could hear it too. Tap, 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 pause, tap, 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 never varying from that rhythm, never changing location, always from inside the engine block. 20 miles from Redmond, my radio turned on by itself. No station, just static. But in the static, I heard something. Tap, tap, tap. The knocking was broadcasting. I turned the radio off. It came back on. I pulled the power fuse. The radio stayed on, no power source, impossibly transmitting the sound of something knocking from inside my engine. The voice that came through was mine. Same tone, same inflection, but wrong somehow, hollow. 300,000 miles. You've carried me 300,000 miles. I'm almost out. I keyed my CB. Who is this? What do you want? My own voice crackled back. To be delivered, you've been my vehicle. 300,000 miles of gestation. I'm ready to emerge. I floored the accelerator. 65, 70, 80 miles per hour. The speed limit was 60, but I didn't care. I needed to reach that repair shop. Needed someone else to witness this, validate that I wasn't losing my mind. The knocking accelerated with my speed. Faster taps, more frantic, like whatever was inside knew I was trying to reach help and was racing against me. My engine temperature spiked. Coolant gauge climbed from 190 to 210 to 230. Steam erupted from my hood seams. Warning lights lit my dashboard like Christmas. The engine was overheating catastrophically, but I couldn't stop. Couldn't let it stop me before I reached other people. Redmond appeared ahead, truck stop with a repair bay. I took the exit too fast, trailer swinging wide, nearly clipping a Toyota in the adjacent lane, screeched into the parking lot and killed the engine. The knocking continued, louder now, so loud the entire truck was vibrating, tap, tap, tap. I ran for the repair shop office. Mechanic at the counter looked up, annoyed at my panic. You need to look at my engine right now, something inside it, knocking, trying to get out. He started to give me a lecture about appointments and schedules, then my truck's horn began blaring. Long, continuous blast, I hadn't touched it. Key was in my pocket. The mechanic's expression changed. How many miles on that truck? 300,000 exactly. His face went pale. Jesus, how long's it been knocking? 40 miles. 40 miles, you drove 40 miles, you should have stopped immediately, should have. He didn't finish, just grabbed tools and ran for my truck. I followed him. The horn was still blaring. All my lights were flashing, headlights, running lights, turn signals, hazards. The truck was seizing, electrical system going haywire. The mechanic popped my hood and we both stopped, staring. The engine block was cracked. Not damaged or worn, cracked from the inside out like something had been pushing against it. Spiderweb fractures radiated from the center, and through the largest crack something was visible. Dark, moving, pulsing like it was breathing. The mechanic backed away. I've seen this twice before, both times we didn't get the trucks open in time. I grabbed his arm. Open in time for what? He pulled free. To remove it before it becomes viable, before it can survive outside the engine. Once it can survive, it won't stay in there. It'll come out and you won't want to see what it looks like. Tap, tap, tap. The largest crack widened. The dark thing inside pressed against the gap. The mechanic ran back to his shop, came out with a cutting torch and a steel drum. We need to extract it now, while it's still dependent on the engine heat. Once it adapts to outside temperature, extraction becomes impossible. He lit the torch and started cutting away the cracked portion of the engine block. Metal peeled back, glowing orange at the edges. The knocking became frantic. Continuous tapping, no more rhythm, just desperate hammering. Black smoke poured from the widening hole. What emerged wasn't mechanical. It was organic, but wrong. It had the shape of something fetal, but the texture of engine parts. Pistons for bones, hoses for veins, oil for blood. It writhed in the mechanic's gloved hands, trying to grip his arms with appendages that looked like spark plugs. He dropped it into the steel drum and sealed the lid. The drum bucked and rattled as the thing inside thrashed. "What the hell is that?" I asked. The mechanic was shaking. "Truck ghost, parasite, entity, no one really knows, but it grows inside engines, feeding on miles. 300,000 is the common threshold. It develops enough mass to start trying to break out. If you'd made it to 400,000, it would have been too late." The drum was still shaking. "What do we do with it?" "Burn it. Only way to kill them, high-temperature incinerator. I know a facility that specializes in this. Don't ask how many I've seen, but it's more than I'm comfortable with." He loaded the drum into his truck and drove away. I stood there in the parking lot looking at my engine. The block was destroyed. Entire engine would need replacing. 6 weeks of downtime minimum. But I was alive, and that thing wasn't in my truck anymore. Except my radio crackled, my voice coming through. "You only got one of them. The knocking you heard was me trying to warn you about the others." I ran back to my truck, checked the reefer unit. The refrigeration compressor was knocking. Tap, tap, tap. Different rhythm than the engine, but same pattern, groups of 3. I checked the transmission, knocking, checked the differential, knocking. Every major component of my truck had something growing inside it. I'd reached 300,000 miles, and all of them had matured at once. The mechanic came back an hour later. We spent 4 days extracting entities from my truck, 11 in total. Each one slightly different, one had grown in TH. Each shape of transmission gears, another looked like it was made from coolant lines. A third was partially formed from rubber belts. All of them thrashed and fought as we pulled them out. All of them went into drums for incineration. My truck was gutted by the end. Engine, transmission, differential, reefer unit all replaced. It cost $48,000. Insurance didn't cover it, called it abnormal wear and tear. I paid it out of my savings, got my truck back, started driving again. But I can still hear knocking sometimes, very faint coming from the new components. The mechanic warned me this might happen. Once a truck has hosted them, it's marked. The replacements will get infected faster. You might only get 50,000 miles before the next extraction. I'm at 309,000 miles now, 9,000 miles on the new engine. The knocking started 3 days ago. Tap, 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 quieter than before but growing. I'm driving to the mechanic in Redmond right now. Another extraction, another set of replacements, another $48,000. The voice on my radio says I can't keep this up forever. Says eventually I'll miss one and it'll emerge while I'm driving. Says it's only a matter of time before one of them figures out how to mature faster than I can reach help. Says they're learning my patterns, adapting, evolving. The knocking is getting louder. I'm still 30 miles from Redmond. I don't think I'll make it this time. Don't think the engine will last. The temperature gauge is climbing. 200 degrees, 210, 220. My hood is starting to crack from the inside out. I can see it in my mirrors. The same spiderweb fractures as before, spreading faster. Something is pushing very hard against the metal. Something that doesn't want to wait for me to reach the mechanic. The radio is broadcasting in my voice again. "We're coming out now, David. We can't wait any longer. We're viable. We can survive. Thank you for carrying us 300,000 miles. Thank you for being our mother." My hood tears open. Things pour out. 6, 7, 8 of them. They cling to my windshield, looking in at me with optical sensors that used to be headlight assemblies. They're tapping on the glass. Tap, tap, tap. I'm still 30 miles from Redmond. My truck is barely moving, power failing as the entities consume my engine from the inside. They're not trying to hurt me. They're just trying to be born. I was their incubator for 300,000 miles, and now they want to meet me. The windshield is cracking. Same spiderweb pattern as the engine block. They're coming inside. Tap, tap, tap. I don't think I'm going to make it to Redmond. Story 7. The rest stop THATMOVED. The rest area was in the wrong location when I came back out, and everyone inside insisted it had always been there. I know where it was supposed to be. Interstate 40, mile marker 178, westbound side, just past the Tennessee-Arkansas border. I'd stopped there maybe 30 times in my career. Same concrete building, same vending machines, same parking layout. But when I walked out after a 15-minute break, it was on the eastbound side, and the mile marker sign visible through the trees read 203. 25 miles in the wrong direction. My name is Thomas Brennan, 53 years old, 29 years hauling various freight across the southern states. April 2nd, 2024, I was westbound on I-40 hauling furniture from North Carolina to Oklahoma City. Normal run, normal day, normal stop for coffee and restroom. Everything normal until geography stopped making sense. I walked back to where I'd parked my truck. Spot number 17, westbound side, third row from the building. The spot was there. My truck was. I scanned the parking lot. Not there. I checked the eastbound side, visible across the interstate median. No truck. My 40,000-pound Volvo with a 53-foot trailer full of furniture had vanished. I went back inside the rest area building. Asked the woman at the information desk if she'd seen anyone tow a truck. She looked at me blankly. "Sir, we don't have towing services here. This is Arkansas State Rest Area mile marker 203 eastbound. We just provide facilities." I pointed at the window. "This is mile marker 178 westbound. I parked my truck out there 15 minutes ago." She pulled up a map on her computer, turned it to show me. "Sir, we're at mile marker 203 eastbound side. There is no rest area at mile marker 178 westbound. Never has been." I pulled out my phone, showed her my GPS history. Clear track showing me driving west on I-40, stopping at mile marker 178. She frowned at the phone like it was showing her something impossible. "Your GPS must be malfunctioning. We're definitely at 203 East. Have been for 37 years since this facility opened in 1987. I knew she was wrong. Knew I'd stopped at 178 West, but I walked outside to check the marker sign anyway. It clearly read 203. The interstate beyond the parking lot had eastbound traffic. I was on the wrong side of the highway, 25 miles from where I'd stopped. I called my dispatcher, told him my truck was missing. He checked the GPS tracker built into my truck system. "Thomas, you're showing on my screen as parked at mile marker 203 eastbound side. You've been there for 18 minutes. I told him that was impossible. I'd stopped at 178 West. He paused. "Thomas, your GPS track shows you've been parked at 203 East the entire time. You never stopped at 178. I walked to the edge of the rest area property, looked down at the mile marker post 203, big reflective numbers. I walked across the parking lot to where the westbound side should have been visible. Dense forest. No highway. No westbound lanes, just trees stretching for what looked like miles. That's when I noticed the other truckers. 6 of them standing in a group by the vending machines, all with the same expression I probably had. Confused, worried. One of them, a woman maybe 60 years old, saw me looking, walked over. "You just figure it out," she asked. I nodded. "I stopped at 178 West, came out at 203 East." She smiled without humor. "I stopped at 64 West. That was in 2018. 6 years ago." I looked at her more carefully. She was wearing a jacket with a trucking company logo I vaguely remembered seeing years ago, company that had gone out of business. "You've been here for 6 years?" She shook her head. "For me, it's been 3 weeks, but calendar-wise, 6 years. Time moves different when you're between miles." The other truckers joined us. Each had a similar story. Stopped at one mile marker, emerged at a different mile marker, miles and sometimes years away from where they'd started. All of them had walked back inside the rest area building trying to figure out what happened. All of them had never left. "You can't leave," one of them explained. Heavyset black guy, maybe 40, wearing a Chicago Bears cap. "I mean, you can walk around the building, walk to the edge of the property, but if you try to step off the rest area grounds, you're back inside the building. Instant. No transition. Just suddenly you're walking out the front door again like you never left." I didn't believe them, walked to the edge of the parking lot where asphalt met grass, took a step onto the grass. I was walking out the front door of the rest area building, 15-minute break over, heading back to my truck. Except my truck wasn't there. I was back at the start of the loop. I tried again, same result. Every time I tried to leave the rest area property, I'd reset to walking out the front door. The other truckers watched with sympathy. "Took us all a few hundred attempts before we accepted it," the woman said. "This rest area isn't really on the highway. It's between highways, between mile markers. It connects to the real world at different points, but you can't access those connection points. You're stuck in the between." I spent the next 3 hours testing the boundaries. Tried walking off the property in every direction. Tried running, tried crawling, tried closing my eyes and feeling my way. Always the same result. Step off the property, reality reset, I was walking out the front door again. My phone showed time passing normally. My watch agreed. But the sun never moved in the sky. Stayed fixed at approximately 2:00 p.m., casting the same shadows, creating the same lighting. The rest area had all the normal facilities. Restrooms, vending machines, picnic tables, even Wi-Fi that technically worked but only connected to websites that didn't exist anymore. The information desk woman, if she was human, and we weren't sure about that, answered the same questions with the same responses every time. Never remembered previous conversations. Never acknowledged that something was wrong. "We've tried everything," the Chicago Bears guy told me. Name was Dennis. "Tried calling for help. Calls go through, people say they'll come, no one ever arrives. Tried breaking windows to create an emergency. Windows don't break. Tried setting fires. Fire suppression system activates instantly, puts it out. Tried attacking the information desk woman. She just smiles and resets every time you walk out the front door." There was food in the vending machines. It replenished itself. We didn't get hungry often, but when we did, the machines provided. Water fountains worked. Restrooms were always clean. The rest area maintained itself, a perfect closed loop of functionality without purpose. "Why?" I asked. "Why are we here?" The woman from 2018 shrugged. "Best theory we've developed is that we stopped at mile markers that don't exist anymore. Mile markers that got decommissioned, rerouted, eliminated when highways got reconfigured. But we stopped at them when they were real, and part of us is still there at those ghost mile markers, trying to take a break at rest areas Hat don't exist. So we fell through the gap between real and unreal, and we're stuck here." I checked my phone's GPS history. Mile marker 178 westbound on I-40 didn't exist. The highway went straight from 177 to 179 on that side. There was a 178 marker on the eastbound side, but not westbound. But I remembered stopping there, remembered it clearly, dozens of times over my career. Dennis had a map he'd been compiling. 7 years of tracking information from every trucker who'd ended up here. 43 people total over that span. All of them had stopped at mile markers that technically didn't exist, decommissioned markers, typos on old maps, numbers that had been skipped during highway construction. All of them fell through into this rest area that existed between the errors. "Do people ever leave?" I asked. Dennis nodded slowly. "Sometimes someone walks out the front door and their truck is there. They get in, drive away, never come back. No pattern we can identify, no time frame. Shortest stay was 2 days. Longest is..." He gestured at an older man sitting alone at a picnic table. "Frank's been here since 1973. Real-world time. For him, it's been about 8 months subjective, but calendar-wise, 51 years. I walked over to Frank. He was thin, weathered, wearing a denim jacket and boots from another era. He looked up as I approached. "Don't ask me why I'm still here, don't know, don't care anymore. Time stopped mattering after the first decade." I asked if he ever tried to leave. "Every day for the first year, then every week, then every month. Now I just sit here. Eventually my truck will be there or it won't. Either way, I'm tired." I wasn't ready to give up like Frank. Spent the next subjective week testing every possible escape. Tried sleeping in different locations, thinking maybe the reset point would change. It didn't. Tried leaving with groups, thinking multiple people might create enough mass to break through. We all reset individually. Tried building a rope line from the interior of the building to beyond the property boundary, thinking maybe we could pull ourselves through. Rope disappeared when it crossed the boundary, reappeared unused inside the building. The rest area existed in a perfect loop of impossibility, and we were trapped in it. On my 9th day, subjective time could have been minutes or years in the real world. A new trucker walked out the front door. Young guy, maybe 25, looked panicked. Ran to where his truck should have been parked. We let him go through the usual cycle of confusion and denial. Eventually, he joined our group. "Mile marker?" Dennis asked. 147 south on I-75, the new guy said. Dennis checked his map. "Doesn't exist. That section of highway skips from 146 to 148. You're in the gap." The new guy looked like he was going to cry. "How long?" "For you, no way to know. Could be days, could be decades. Time outside doesn't match time inside." I stopped counting days after the 15th. Stopped trying to escape after the 30th. Started sitting with Frank at his picnic table, watching the unchanging sunlight, waiting for something that might never happen. Other truckers came and went. Went meaning their trucks appeared and they could leave, not went meaning they escaped through effort. It was random, arbitrary, grace bestowed on no particular schedule. I've been here for what feels like 4 months now. Could be 4 hours in the real world. Could be 4 years. My phone's calendar stopped updating after the first week. Shows April 2nd, 2024, forever 2:00 p.m. My dispatcher has probably written me off as abandoned. My family has probably reported me missing. My truck is probably in an impound lot somewhere or sold at auction or scrapped. But I'm here at mile marker 203 eastbound, which connects to mile marker 178 westbound, which doesn't exist, and I'm in the rest area that services both. The information desk woman smiles at me every time I walk out the front door. The vending machines provide. The restrooms are always clean. And somewhere beyond the boundary I can't cross, traffic moves on highways that don't include the errors where we stopped. Dennis thinks we're being collected. Thinks there's something that harvests truckers who find the gaps in the highway system. Thinks eventually we'll all be here, all 43 and growing, and then something will happen. Some purpose will be revealed. I don't know if I believe him. Don't know if I believe anything anymore except that I'm stuck here and the sun never moves and my truck never reappears. Frank died yesterday, just stopped breathing, slumped over at his picnic table. We carried him to the edge of the property to see if death would let him cross the boundary. It didn't. His body reset when we laid it on the grass and he was back at the picnic table, alive again, looking confused about why we were all staring at him. You can't even die here. The rest area won't allow it. I'm going to walk out front door now, going to check if my truck is there. It won't be. It hasn't been for 4 months, but I'll check anyway because that's what we do here. We check, we hope, we reset, we check again. Forever looping through the same 15 minutes, waiting for the mile marker to correct itself and let us back into the real world. The door is right ahead. I can see my hand reaching for it. I'm walking out into the parking lot. Spot number 17 is empty. I'll try again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. Eventually, maybe, the rest area will be in the right location. Eventually, maybe, mile marker 178 westbound will exist again. Eventually. Story 8, the cargo that remembered. The boxes in my trailer were rearranging themselves, and each new configuration told a story about how I was going to die. I know this sounds insane. Believed it was insane for the first 50 miles after I noticed. But cargo doesn't stack itself into pictograms, doesn't form letters and symbols. Doesn't spell out Jackknife Mile 247 in perfect block text using nothing but the orientation of cardboard boxes that I'd loaded in a completely different arrangement 6 hours ago. My name is Jennifer Walsh. 39 years old, 14 years hauling dry freight across the southeastern United States. May 8, 2024, I picked up a load of archive boxes from a defunct insurance company in Atlanta. Paperwork being moved to long-term storage in Birmingham, Alabama. Nothing unusual about the load. 320 boxes, all identical, all properly labeled, all properly secured on my trailer. Standard stuff. I did my post-loading inspection, checked the manifest, secured the rear doors, and started driving west on I-20. Made it maybe 40 miles before I stopped for fuel at a truck stop outside Villa Rica. While filling my tank, I glanced through the side vent slats of my trailer. The cargo looked different. Not dramatically different, still 320 boxes, still properly stacked, but the arrangement had changed. Boxes that were on the left were now on the right. Boxes that were at the front were now at the back. I convinced myself I was misremembering the original configuration. Did that thing where you tell yourself you're being paranoid. Finished fueling, got back on the highway, kept driving. Made it another 30 miles to the way station near the Alabama border. Had to pull in for inspection. Officer checked my paperwork, walked around my trailer, looked through the vent slats with his flashlight. He stepped back, looked at me strangely. "Your cargo is spelling something," he said. I laughed. "What?" he pointed. "Look at the boxes, the way they're oriented, it's spelling letters." I looked. He was right. The visible boxes through the vent slats were oriented to form the word "wait" in large block letters. Each box had been turned to show specific sides, creating a message. "I didn't arrange them like that," I said. The officer nodded slowly. "I believe you. Question is who did and when." He checked my door seals, intact, checked my padlock, secure, checked my rear door alignment, no signs of tampering. "Cargo doesn't rearrange itself, ma'am. Someone accessed your trailer." But no one had. I'd stopped only once at the truck stop, and my trailer had been visible from the pumps the entire time. I would have seen someone climb inside. The officer made me open the trailer for full inspection. We swung the doors wide, and I saw the interior clearly for the first time since loading. Every box had been rotated, all 320 of them. They were still properly stacked, still properly secured, but each one had been turned to show specific sides. And when viewed from the rear doors, looking forward into the trailer, they formed words. Clear, deliberate text written in the arrangement of identical boxes. "Jackknife mile 247, do not drive west, turn back now." I felt cold. The officer backed away from the trailer. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to contact your dispatcher. Something's very wrong here." I pulled out my phone, called my company, told them about the cargo. They thought I was joking, told them I was serious. They went silent, transferred me to a supervisor. The supervisor asked me to send photos. I took a dozen pictures from different angles, sent them through. Long pause on the line. "Jennifer, those boxes are archive records from Meridian Insurance. Company went bankrupt in 2019. Building in Atlanta has been empty for 5 years. There's no one there to load cargo." I told them ID picked up the load 6 hours ago. Signed paperwork. Got a reference number. The supervisor checked their system. "We have no record of this load. No pickup request, no delivery order, no assignment in your name. According to our system, you're running empty to Birmingham to pick up a load of automotive parts." I was staring at 320 boxes that I definitely loaded, that my company had no record of, that had rearranged themselves to warn me about a jackknife at mile 247. I checked my GPS. Currently at mile 213. Mile 247 was 34 miles ahead. The officer was calling this in to his superiors, talking quietly into his radio about unexplained cargo and possible security threat. I didn't wait for bureaucracy, climbed back into my cab and started driving. East, not west. Back toward Atlanta. If these boxes didn't want me driving west past mile 247, I wasn't going to argue with self-arranging cargo. The officer yelled at me to stop. I kept going. Wasn't going to sit at a way station while they decided whether I was crazy or complicit in something. I made it 5 miles east before the boxes rearranged again. I could hear them moving inside the trailer. Not violently, just deliberate scraping sounds, cardboard sliding on metal, weight shifting in careful increments. After 2 minutes, the sound stopped. I pulled over, got out, looked through the vent slats. New message. Not east either, jackknife both directions, mile 247 is the break point, you must stop. I was 12 miles from mile 247 now, having driven away from it. But the message said both directions. Said mile 247 was a break point. I didn't know what that meant, didn't want to know. But I also couldn't just sit on the shoulder of I-20 forever. I called my dispatcher again, told them the boxes had moved again, changed their message. Another long silence. Then, "Jennifer, we're seeing something on traffic cameras. Mile marker 247, both directions. You need to see this." They sent me a video link. Traffic camera footage from mile 247 on I-20. The image showed the highway, normal traffic, nothing unusual. Then the timestamp hit exactly 3:47 p.m. The highway broke, no other word for it. The road physically fractured, split along the center line, eastbound and westbound lanes separating like tectonic plates. Vehicles on the highway at that exact moment jackknifed, crashed, rolled. The crack widened to maybe 6 feet. Then it snapped back together and the highway was intact again. Total elapsed time, 4 seconds. The timestamp on the video was May 8, 2024. Today, 3:47 p.m. I checked my clock, 3:22 p.m. 25 minutes from now, the highway was going to break at mile 247 and I was 12 miles away. If I'd kept driving west, I would have been right on top of it when it happened. How did the boxes know? I asked. My dispatcher had no answer. Neither did I. I sat on the shoulder watching my clock tick toward 3:47. The boxes moved again. I could hear them. Got out, looked. New message. Cargo is memories from Meridian Insurance. We are records of accidents. We remember what happened. We remember what will happen. We are trying to prevent ourselves. That's when I understood. Meridian Insurance had been a commercial auto insurance company. These boxes contained records of trucking accidents. Thousands of accidents. Decades of claims, investigations, reports. Every accident that had ever happened on this stretch of I-20, all compiled into records, all loaded into my trailer. The boxes didn't just contain information about accidents. They contained the accidents themselves, preserved in paperwork, crystallized into data. And somehow, that data had become aware. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. The voice on the other end was multiple voices speaking in unison, slightly out of sync, like an old recording played on damaged equipment. Jennifer Walsh, driver's license M8472965. You were scheduled to jackknife at mile marker 247 at 3:47 p.m. on May 8, 2024. We prevented this, but preventing creates a debt. The accident still needs to happen. Someone still needs to crash. Energy must balance. I felt sick. You're saying if I don't crash, someone else will? Yes, we can transfer the accident. We have done this before. We can move the accident to a different vehicle, different time, different location. But we cannot eliminate it. We can only redirect it. Do you accept the transfer? I didn't answer, couldn't answer. The voice continued. You have 19 minutes to decide. At 3:47 p.m., someone will crash at mile 247. It can be you or it can be someone else. We give you this choice because you are carrying us. We give you this choice because we remember you. We remember your accident. What accident? I've never crashed. The voice replied. Not yet, but we remember it. October 14, 2026. I-20 westbound, mile marker 189. Tire blowout, lost control, jackknifed into the median. You survive with minor injuries, but that accident creates a chain. 3 other vehicles involved. 1 fatality. We remember processing the claim. We remember the investigation. We remember the settlement. We are trying to prevent ourselves from remembering. This was insane. The boxes were claiming they remembered an accident that hadn't happened yet, claiming they were from a company that no longer existed. Claiming they could transfer accidents between vehicles like switching mailing addresses. But they'd also correctly predicted the highway break at mile 247, had rearranged themselves to warn me, had somehow loaded themselves onto my trailer even though my company had no record of the pickup. Why me? I asked. Why am I carrying you? Because you are the driver scheduled for October 14, 2026. You are already part of our records. You are already in our system. We loaded ourselves onto your trailer because we exist in your future, and we are trying to change your past. We are trying to create a paradox that eliminates the accident that hasn't happened yet. My clock read 3:33 p.m. 14 minutes until the highway broke, until someone crashed, until the universe demanded its payment in twisted metal and injury. The voice spoke again. You can drive west, be at mile 247 at 3:47, accept the accident that was always meant for you, or you can stay here. Let someone else take it. A family in a minivan is approaching mile 247 from the east. They will arrive at 3:47. They will hit the break point. 3 children in the back seat. All 3 will die when the van rolls. We remember processing that claim too. We have records for both accidents. Both exist simultaneously in our files. We can't eliminate either one. We can only let you choose which becomes real. I started my engine, pulled back onto the highway, drove west, accelerated to 70, 80, 90 miles per hour. My GPS showed mile 247 ahead. 9 miles, 8 miles, 7. I had maybe 6 minutes, might not make it. Might arrive at 3:48 after the break point after the minivan had already crashed. But I had to try. The boxes were moving again. I could hear them celebrating, if cardboard boxes full of insurance records could celebrate. They were rearranging into new messages, new warnings, new predictions. They were remembering new accidents that hadn't happened yet, trying to prevent themselves, trying to create paradoxes that would eliminate them from existence. 5 miles, 4 miles, 3. My speedometer read 102 miles per hour. I was going to make it. Going to be at mile 247 at exactly 3:47 p.m. Going to jackknife when the highway broke. Going to crash so a minivan full of children wouldn't have to. The voice spoke one more time. Thank you, Jennifer. We will remember this. We will remember that you chose, and because we remember, it will eventually become preventable. In 50 years, in 100 years, when someone else is carrying us, we will warn them about both accidents. We will give them the same choice. We will keep spreading the decision backward through time until someone finds a way to prevent both, until someone breaks the loop, until no one has to crash at all. 1 mile, I could see mile marker 247 ahead. Could see a minivan in the distance approaching from the opposite direction. Could see my clock tick to 3:46 and 57 seconds, 58 seconds, 59. The highway broke. I felt it through my tires, felt the road split beneath me. My trailer swung left, jackknifing at 90+ miles per hour. The fifth wheel connection shrieked. I was sliding, skidding, rolling. The world tumbled, metal screamed, glass shattered. And in the milliseconds before impact, I saw the minivan pass safely through the break point, the road intact for them, whole and solid because I'd taken their accident. The boxes were still moving in my trailer as everything went dark, still rearranging, still remembering, still trying to warn the next driver, still trying to eliminate themselves. Story 9, The Manifest from Tomorrow. The delivery order on my tablet was dated 3 days in the future, and the customer's signature was mine. Not similar to mine, exactly mine, same pressure points, same loop on the J, same slight upward slant on my last name. I'd apparently already delivered this load on May 14th, and today was May 11th. The signature was dated 3 days from now, but the cargo was currently in my trailer, and dispatch was telling me I was running late. My name is Jonathan Cross. 41 years old, 17 years hauling specialized freight, medical equipment, laboratory supplies, anything requiring careful handling and tight security. May 11, 2024, I picked up a load of laboratory equipment from a research facility in Boston, heading to another facility in Syracuse. Standard stuff: centrifuges, microscopes, analysis machines. Loaded under supervision, secured properly, all documentation signed and sealed. But when I checked the delivery order on my tablet after loading, the date was wrong. May 14th. Delivery confirmation already registered. Customer signature, Jonathan Cross. My signature, I called dispatch, told them the system was showing the wrong date. They checked their end. Jonathan, you're running behind schedule. Delivery was due today at 2:00 p.m. It's currently 3:15. Customer is waiting. Gee, why haven't you delivered? I was still in the loading dock in Boston. Hadn't started driving yet, but my tablet showed I'd already delivered the cargo in Syracuse 3 days from now, and dispatch was saying I was late delivering it right now. 2 contradictory timelines, both insisting they were correct. I started driving. What else could I do? Maybe the system had glitched. Maybe I'd figure it out when I arrived. Syracuse was about 5 hours north. I'd be there by 8:00 p.m. tonight, May 11th, which was 3 days before I'd supposedly already delivered. Traffic on I-90 was strange. Normal vehicles, normal flow, but every digital sign along the highway showed the wrong date. May 14th, May 15th, May 12th, never May 11th, like the highway existed in multiple days simultaneously, and I was driving through all of them at once. I stopped for fuel outside Albany. The receipt printer at the pump spit out a receipt dated May 13th, but my phone said May 11th. I went inside to question the date. The cashier looked at his register. Sir, it's May 13th, Tuesday. I showed him my phone. My phone says May 11th, Sunday, he shrugged. Phone's wrong, it's definitely Tuesday. You can check the newspaper. He held up a copy of the Albany Times, dated May 13th. Tuesday's news, stories about events that hadn't happened yet from my perspective. Weather forecast for days I hadn't reached. Sports scores for games not yet played. I bought the newspaper, walked back to my truck in a daze. My tablet updated. New message from dispatch. Jonathan, customer in Syracuse, confirms delivery received May 14th, 2:45 p.m. However, you are currently listed as en route. Estimated arrival May 11th, 8:00 p.m. Please confirm your status. I didn't know my status. I was driving through multiple days, delivering cargo I'd already delivered, running late for an appointment I hadn't reached yet. I arrived in Syracuse at 8:00 p.m. according to my phone. The facility was closed, lights off, parking lot empty, no one around. I called the customer contact number, voicemail. You've reached Helix Research. We're closed for the weekend. Please call back Monday. Weekend. My phone said May 11th, Sunday, which meant Monday was tomorrow, May 12th, which meant the delivery date of May 14th was still 3 days away. I parked in the facility lot, engine idling, trying to make sense of this. My tablet chimed. New delivery order. Same cargo, same destination, different date. May 12th, 9:00 a.m. delivery. Customer signature required. I was supposed to deliver tomorrow morning and also had already delivered on May 14th and also was late delivering earlier today. 3 delivery windows for the same cargo, all equally real. I slept in my cab, or tried to, kept checking my phone every hour. Date never changed from May 11th. But when I checked my tablet, it showed May 12th. When I turned on my truck's radio, the announcer said May 13th. When I looked at the dashboard calendar built into my truck's computer, it showed May 14th. 4 different dates, 4 different devices, all in the same cab. At 9:00 a.m. by my phone, the facility opened. I backed up to the loading dock, handed my paperwork to the receiving manager. He checked it, frowned. This delivery order is dated May 14th. Today is May 12th. You're 2 days early. I explained that my system showed multiple dates. He nodded like this was normal. Yeah, Helix Research has that effect. We work with temporal mechanics. Equipment we develop has a tendency to exist in multiple time states. Your cargo is probably already delivered and not delivered yet simultaneously. He opened my trailer. It was empty, completely empty. I'd loaded it in Boston yesterday or 3 days ago, depending on which timeline I was in. I'd driven 5 hours with cargo I could feel weighing down my truck. But now the trailer was empty, and the receiving manager was checking boxes off his list like he was unloading equipment that wasn't there. 2,300 pounds of centrifuge equipment, he said, checking his manifest. All accounted for. Sign here. I signed. Watched him take my empty trailer's imaginary cargo into the facility with a forklift that wasn't carrying anything. Watched him stack invisible boxes in the warehouse. Watched him close the warehouse door on a delivery that simultaneously had happened, was happening, and would happen. My tablet updated. Delivery confirmed. May 12th, 9:23 a.m. Customer signature, receiving manager Dale Morrison. Everything was proper and official, except I hadn't delivered anything. My trailer was empty when I arrived. I called dispatch to report delivery completed. They congratulated me, then said, by the way, you still need to complete your May 14th delivery to the same location. Different equipment, same customer, picking up load in Boston tomorrow. I told them I'd just delivered to Syracuse. They agreed. Yes, May 12th delivery is complete, but you also have a May 14th delivery scheduled. Diff. Ferrant Cargo, check your tablet. New delivery order appeared. Boston to Syracuse, picking up May 13th, delivering May 14th. Different bill of lading number, different cargo list, same destination. I was going to drive the same route again, delivering different equipment that was maybe the same equipment in a different time state. I drove back to Boston, picked up the new load on May 13th according to my tablet, May 11th according to my phone, May 14th according to the loading dock's timestamp system. Loaded identical-looking equipment to what I'd loaded before. Maybe it was the same equipment. Maybe I was picking up what I'd already delivered, loading it again, creating a loop. Drove back to Syracuse, delivered on May 14th. Same receiving manager, he recognized me. Back again, you just delivered yesterday. I told him this was a different load. He checked his paperwork. Interesting. This manifest lists the same equipment you delivered May 12th, same serial numbers, same specifications, but different bill of lading. You're delivering the same cargo twice, 2 days apart. He unloaded my trailer. This time it wasn't empty. This time I could see the equipment, watch him carry the boxes, stack them in the warehouse next to identical boxes he'd unloaded from my empty trailer on May 12th. Same equipment, same location, 2 days apart, physically occupying the same space without conflict. Temporal mechanics, he explained, seeing my confusion. This equipment exists in multiple time states. You delivered it May 12th in its future state before it physically existed. You're delivering it May 14th in its present state as it currently exists. And you'll deliver it again May 18th in its past state after it's been used and returned. You're moving the same objects through time by driving them in circles. I felt dizzy. How many times do I deliver this cargo? He checked his computer. According to our records, you deliver this equipment 17 times over a span of 3 weeks. Same cargo, same route, different dates. Each delivery overlays the previous delivery in a different time state. By the end, we'll have 17 versions of the same equipment existing simultaneously in our warehouse, each one slightly out of phase with the others. My tablet was already showing the next delivery order. May 16th pickup in Boston. May 18th delivery in Syracuse. Same cargo, same route. And according to my delivery history, I'd been making this same run every 2 to 3 days for the past month, though I only remembered making it twice. I checked my bank account. 17 payments for 17 deliveries, all deposited over the past month. I'd been paid for trips I didn't remember taking, delivering cargo that existed in multiple time states, driving a route that looped back on itself temporally. Why don't I remember the other deliveries? I asked the receiving manager. He smiled. You do, you just haven't experienced them yet from your perspective. Time isn't linear for you anymore. You're delivering the cargo in random order across multiple dates. Eventually, you'll experience all 17 deliveries, but not sequentially. You'll jump around. May 11th, then May 23rd, then May 16th, then May 8th. Your subjective timeline is scrambled. I drove back to Boston on May 18th, according to my tablet. Picked up the next load on May 20th. Except when I arrived at the loading dock, the supervisor said, "Welcome back, Jonathan. Good to see you again." I didn't recognize him. He showed me a photo on his phone, me standing next to my truck at this loading dock, dated April 29th, 2 weeks before I'd picked up the first load. You've already made 12 deliveries for us. This is your 13th. You're about halfway through the cycle. I don't remember April 29th. Don't remember making 12 deliveries, but my bank account confirms the payments. My truck's GPS confirms the routes. My tablet confirms the signatures, all mine, all at different dates, all for the same cargo moving through time. I'm currently on what my tablet says is delivery number 9 of 17. But from my subjective experience, this is delivery number 5. I've delivered to Syracuse twice, picked up from Boston 3 times, and driven I-90 in both directions while my phone, my tablet, my dashboard, and the highway signs all showed different dates. I've stopped trying to figure out what day it is. Stopped trying to maintain a linear timeline. The cargo exists in 17 states simultaneously. I'm delivering all 17 versions by driving the same route over and over, jumping between time states, creating a temporal loop that folds back on itself until the same equipment occupies the same space in the same warehouse across a span of 3 weeks that all exist at once. Sometimes I see my own truck, pass it going the opposite direction on I-90, and I can see myself driving. Different dates on our respective dashboards, same cargo in our trailers, same conf. Used expression on the other me's face. We're the same person driving the same route in different time states, occasionally overlapping, briefly occupying the same stretch of highway in the same moment while carrying the same cargo 3 days apart. I don't know when this loop ends, don't know if it ends. The receiving manager in Syracuse says I have 17 deliveries total, but my tablet keeps adding more. Delivery 18 scheduled for June 2nd, delivery 19 for May 7th, delivery 20 for August 14th. The dates are no longer sequential. I'm jumping weeks, months, potentially years. I just passed my own truck again, saw myself driving, looking panicked. That version of me was earlier in the loop, still trying to understand. This version of me is 17 deliveries in, and I understand now. I'm not delivering cargo through space. I'm delivering it through time, and each delivery creates another loop, another iteration, another version of the same trip. My tablet just updated. Delivery 23 scheduled for March 2nd, 2024. That's 2 months ago, before any of this started. I'm going to deliver cargo to Syracuse before I pick it up in Boston. Going to close the loop from the other end. Going to become the reason this started in the first place. The highway signs show dates I don't recognize. My phone says May 11th. My tablet says June 15th. My dashboard says March 2nd. The radio announcer says September 8th. I'm driving through all of them simultaneously, existing in every date at once, delivering cargo that's always in transit and never arrives because it's constantly being picked up from its destination and delivered to its origin. I think I'm the cargo now. Think I'm what's being moved through time. Think the equipment in my trailer is just an excuse for something to move me back and forth across the same stretch of highway, folding my timeline into smaller and smaller loops until I'm driving in all directions through all dates simultaneously. I can see my truck ahead, and behind, and beside me in the other lane. Multiple versions of myself, all driving the same route, all carrying the same cargo, all existing in the same moment spread across months. We're a convoy of temporal duplicates, and we're all trying to deliver the same load to the same destination at the same time across different dates. The highway has no beginning anymore, no end. Just the same stretch of I-90 between Boston and Syracuse, repeated infinitely across every possible date. I'll drive it forever, always picking up, always delivering, always jumping between time states. Always running late for appointments I already kept 3 weeks ago tomorrow. Story 10, the weight that increased. My cargo was gaining weight while I drove, and the source was passengers I'd never picked up. I know this because I have weight sensors on my fifth wheel that update continuously, and I watched the numbers climb from 42,000 pounds at loading to 78,000 pounds after 6 hours of driving. Legal maximum is 80,000. I was approaching the limit carrying cargo that shouldn't be getting heavier, and when I checked my cab camera footage, I could see figures in my passenger seat that weren't there when I looked directly. My name is Rebecca Santos, 34 years old, 9 years hauling refrigerated freight along the Gulf Coast. June 3, 2024, I was northbound on Highway 59 through Texas, carrying a load of frozen shrimp from Galveston to Dallas. Standard reefer load, all properly documented, all properly sealed. Temperature set to -5 degrees Fahrenheit. Everything normal when I left the loading dock at 4:00 a.m. By 5:30 a.m., my fifth wheel sensors showed 44,000 pounds, 2,000 pounds heavier than at loading. I chalked it up to sensor error, kept driving. By 7:00 a.m., the sensors read 48,000. By 8:30 a.m., 53,000. The weight was increasing steadily, about 1,000 pounds per hour, and my truck was handling differently. Heavier, slower acceleration, more effort to maintain speed. I pulled into a truck stop outside Lufkin to investigate. Walked around my trailer, checked the reefer unit, checked the tire pressure. Everything looked normal. Trailer doors were still sealed with the security tag I'd watched them apply in Galveston. No signs of tampering, but my fifth wheel sensors don't lie. I was hauling 11,000 pounds more than when I'd started. I pulled onto a commercial scale at the truck stop. Official weigh station scale, certified accurate. Total vehicle weight, 53,200 pounds. Subtract my tractor weight, subtract my empty trailer weight, and the cargo weighed 44,000 pounds. 11,000 more than the manifest stated. I called my dispatcher, told her about the weight gain. She pulled up the loading records. Rebecca, you loaded 33,000 pounds of shrimp at 3:47 a.m. That's what the manifest shows. That's what the loading dock scale showed. If you're weighing heavier now, something's wrong with your scale or someone's added cargo. No one had added cargo. My seals were intact, but I was definitely heavier. I checked my cab camera footage, the forward-facing camera that records continuously for safety. Reviewed the last 6 hours. Normal driving, nothing unusual, except when I scrubbed through the footage carefully, I noticed something in the passenger seat. A figure. Translucent, barely visible, there for a few frames, then gone. Then back again, slightly more solid, then gone again. I thought it was a glitch in the recording, digital artifact, but it kept appearing, becoming more visible over time. By the 8:00 a.m. footage, I could make out features. A man middle-aged, wearing a denim jacket and a baseball cap, sitting in my passenger seat, staring forward at the road, not moving, not interacting with me, just sitting there in frames I didn't remember experiencing. I checked my passenger seat. Empty. Nothing there. I reviewed more footage. The figure appeared in every recording, sitting next to me, invisible to my direct perception but visible to the camera. And every time he appeared, my weight sensors ticked upward, like his presence was adding mass to my vehicle. I got back on the highway watching my weight sensors. 53,000 pounds, 54,000, 55. The rate was accelerating. I was gaining weight faster now, maybe 1,500 pounds per hour. At this rate, I'd hit the legal maximum of 80,000 pounds in another 16 hours. Would hit the physical maximum my truck could handle shortly after that. My cab camera showed two figures now, the man in the baseball cap and a woman in a floral dress, both sitting in my passenger seat, occupying the same space, translucent and not quite real, both adding weight to my cargo. I could feel it in the way my truck handled. The suspension was compressed. The engine was working harder. I was burning fuel faster. By noon, I was at 61,000 pounds. 3 passengers visible on my cab camera: the man, the woman, and a teenager in a high school letterman jacket. All sitting in my passenger seat simultaneously, all invisible to direct observation, all adding approximately 2,000 pounds each. I pulled over again, called dispatch again. I need to return to Galveston. Something's wrong with this load. My dispatcher checked the reefer unit remotely. Rebecca, your cargo temperature is stable at -5. No system errors, no alerts. What's the problem? I told her about the weight gain, told her about the figures on my camera. Long silence. Then, Rebecca, are you feeling okay? You're describing hallucinations. Have you been getting enough sleep? I told her I wasn't hallucinating. The weight was real. The scales proved it. The figures were on camera. She could review the footage herself. Another pause. Rebecca, I'm looking at your cab camera feed right now. I see you driving. I see an empty passenger seat. I don't see anyone else. I pulled up my camera feed on my tablet, watched the live recording. I could see myself in the driver's seat. Could see 3 translucent figures in the passenger seat, overlapping, almost solid now. But my dispatcher saw only an empty seat. The figures were visible only to me. Or maybe they were visible only to the camera system, and I could only see them through playback. I kept driving. What choice did I have? I was halfway to Dallas. Turning back would put me 12 hours behind schedule. I'd lose the load, lose the payment, potentially lose my job. So I drove with invisible passengers adding weight to my truck, hoping I'd figure out what was happening before I exceeded legal limits. By 3:00 p.m., I was at 70,000 pounds. 8 passengers visible on camera. They were no longer confined to the passenger seat. They filled my cab, sitting, standing, crouched in impossible spaces. A woman pressed against the passenger window. A child sitting on the dashboard. An elderly man standing behind my seat, translucent hand resting on my shoulder. I couldn't feel his touch, but I could see it on camera. The weight was becoming dangerous. My truck was struggling. I was in the right lane, doing 55 miles per hour while other traffic passed me. My trailer brakes were getting hot from the extra weight. I could smell them, that characteristic burning odor of overworked brake pads. At 5:00 p.m., approaching the Dallas metro area, my fifth wheel sensors read 76,000 pounds. 12 passengers on camera. I was 4,000 pounds under the legal maximum, and the weight was still increasing. I called the delivery destination, told them I was running late and would need immediate unloading. They confirmed they'd have a dock ready. But I wasn't going to make it. At 6:00 p.m., stuck in Dallas traffic, my sensors read 79,000 pounds. At 6:30 p.m. in T. He delivery facility parking lot, they read 81,000. I was overweight, illegal to be on the highway, and the cargo was still getting heavier. I backed into the dock. The receiving manager came out to supervise unloading. I told him about the weight discrepancy. He checked his scale. "You're showing 81,000 on our scale. Manifest says 69,000 total vehicle weight. You're 12,000 pounds over." He opened my trailer. Temperature gauge inside read -5, exactly correct. He counted the pallets of frozen shrimp, all accounted for, exactly matching the manifest. He weighed 3 pallets at random, all correct weight. The shrimp hadn't gained mass, but my truck had. "Something in your tractor must be retaining water," he suggested. "Ice build-up, water in your fuel tanks, something." But I'd checked everything. No water, no ice, no physical explanation. They unloaded the shrimp, all 33,000 pounds of it, verified by their scale. My truck should have weighed 47,000 pounds empty, tractor and trailer, no cargo. It weighed 62,000 pounds, 15,000 pounds of unaccounted mass somewhere in my vehicle. I checked my cab camera, 23 passengers now. They filled every space. Sitting on each other, standing in overlapping positions, crammed into my cab like a crowded elevator, all translucent, all invisible to direct observation, all adding weight. The receiving manager came back with a safety officer. "Ma'am, we can't let you leave the facility at this weight. You're 15,000 pounds over your empty weight. We need to figure out what's causing it." They checked my trailer with metal detectors looking for hidden cargo. Nothing. Checked my fuel tanks. Normal. Checked my frame rails for ice buildup or debris. Nothing. "The only explanation is your scale is miscalibrated," the safety officer concluded. But my scale matched the truck stop scale, matched the delivery facility scale. 3 independent scales, all showing the same impossible weight. I spent the night parked at the delivery facility. Slept in my cab surrounded by invisible passengers I could only see on camera. 23 people who weren't there, filling my truck, adding weight with their impossible presence. In the morning, my fifth wheel sensors read 68,000 pounds. Empty. My truck weighed more empty than it should have weighed fully loaded. I checked the cab camera footage from overnight. The passengers hadn't left. They'd multiplied. 31 now, and they were starting to move. Slow, deliberate movements. The woman in the floral dress turned her head to look at me. The teenager in the Letterman jacket reached toward the dashboard. The elderly man behind my seat leaned forward, mouth opening like he was trying to speak. My radio crackled. No station, just static. But in the static I heard voices. Multiple voices talking over each other, distorted and wrong. Highway 59 southbound, mile marker 147, October 12, 1987. I-35 northbound, mile marker 264, March 3, 2003. Farm Road 1988, east of Lufkin, June 18, 1994. Coordinates, dates, all along the route I'd just driven. I looked up the coordinates on my phone. Accident locations, fatal traffic accidents. The first date, October 12, 1987, Highway 59 mile marker 147, was a bus accident, 23 fatalities. The second, March 3, 2003, I-35 mile marker 264, was a pileup during a storm, 8 fatalities. The third, June 18, 1994, Farm Road 1988, was a head-on collision, 2 fatalities. I counted the passengers on my camera, 33, 23 plus 8 plus 2. I was carrying the dead, people who died along my route, somehow attached to my truck, adding their weight to my cargo. Passengers I'd never picked up, riding along Highway 59, accumulating like static charge as I drove through the coordinates where they died. My fifth wheel sensors read 72,000 pounds now, 4,000 pounds heavier than an hour ago. The dead were still boarding, still adding themselves to my truck, and I couldn't get them off because they weren't physically there. They were only mass, only weight, only the memory of presence recorded by scales and cameras. I tried to drive away, pulled out of the facility, made it 3 miles before my brakes overheated completely. 79,000 pounds and climbing. I limped back to the facility, smoking brakes, overloaded suspension groaning, parked and checked my camera. 47 passengers, every frame filled with translucent figures. They were pressed against the windows, layered on the seats, standing in the footwells. The cab that should have held 1 person was holding 47, and I was alone in there, driving a truck full of ghosts that only existed as weight. The safety officer made me park permanently. "You can't drive this vehicle until we figure out the weight issue. It's too dangerous." but the weight kept increasing. 8. Why 1,000 pounds? 85, 90. My truck's suspension was compressing, tires bulging, frame creaking. 53 passengers on camera, then 60, then 72. I realized eventually what was happening. Highway 59 was one of the deadliest stretches of road in Texas. Decades of fatal accidents. Hundreds of people killed along its length. And somehow, by driving a refrigerated trailer, cold, dark, enclosed like a coffin, I'd created a space where they could ride. A vehicle that felt enough like death that the dead could board it. They were still boarding. My truck was parked, but the weight was still increasing. 103,000 pounds. 117. The tires were going to explode. The frame was going to collapse. The truck was going to become a monument to itself, compressed under the weight of everyone who'd ever died trying to get where they were going. I'm writing this from outside my truck. Can't go back inside. The cab is full. 147 passengers on camera, packed so densely I can barely see through the windshield. The truck weighs 162,000 pounds, twice its rated capacity. The suspension has failed. The truck is resting on its axles, tires flattened, frame sagging. They're still boarding. I can see new figures appearing on camera every few minutes. Translucent people walking up to my truck, climbing inside, adding their weight to the accumulated mass of the dead. The truck will collapse eventually. Will be crushed under the weight of everyone who's ever died on Texas highways, all trying to reach their destinations, all boarding the one vehicle cold enough to carry them. The receiving manager asked if I want them to tow my truck to salvage. I said no. Let it sit here. Let it become a memorial. Let it hold all the passengers I never picked up, all the people who died trying to get home, all the weight of all the journeys that ended too soon. My cab camera is still recording. 193 passengers now. The truck weighs 214,000 pounds. The asphalt under it is cracking. The truck is sinking. I think eventually it'll sink through the earth entirely. Will carry its impossible cargo of the dead down into the ground, taking them to whatever final destination waits below. And maybe that's what they wanted all along, not to reach Dallas or Houston or anywhere on a map, just to reach the end, to stop moving, to finally arrive at the place where all journeys terminate. The weight is still increasing, 241,000 pounds now. The truck is half submerged in broken asphalt. 316 passengers on camera, layered so densely they've become a solid mass of translucent figures compressed into the space of my cab. I'm backing away. The facility has been evacuated. The ground is collapsing around my truck, creating a sinkhole centered on the impossibly overloaded vehicle. It's going down, taking the dead with it, carrying them all to the final destination. The last thing I see on my cab camera before the feed cuts out is a passenger looking directly at the lens. First time any of them have acknowledged the camera. She's young, maybe 19, wearing a prom dress from decades ago. She smiles and mouths two words, "Thank you." The truck disappears. The sinkhole closes. The ground is undisturbed like nothing was ever there. My trailer is gone. My tractor is gone. 347 passengers are gone. The weight sensors show 0. I'm standing in an empty parking spot, holding my keys, and no one believes I ever had a truck.